I'm not just saying make runs in behind, right? I'm saying like if you're in the middle, then make runs down, like move to the left, move to the right, take the ball, take a touch, pass it on, and then make your run, right? I think we've got to see a little more of that, and hopefully it does work out. And one more miss is actually Kovacic. I think we haven't spoken about that. I think every time Kovacic and Lukaku are on the pitch, they seem to have a great connection. So once Kovacic is back too, I think it could make a huge difference. But let's see. We have a lot of players injured out at the moment, and that's sort of making it hard for everyone to build up chemistry. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked out. So hopefully everyone's fit for a continued period of time. Hopefully they can work together in training and on the pitch, and hopefully once they get they just have to be on the same mental wavelength. And once they are on that, I still think we're going to get a lot of goals and fluidity from Lukaku.
Kovacic is a good shout there. You said he's been playing a lot of progressive passes, got a lot of assists, and he seems to connect with Lukaku a lot more. And Thomas Tuchel said this in a particular press conference as well. Kishan and Ameya, let's take this to a different level now, where I want to find the right balance, because these conversations that we've been having about Lukaku, I feel like let's try and see if we can visualize the right balance in our mind and see what the fan base, the live chat has to say as well. Nearly 65 of you guys live right now. Smash the like button. We're very, very close to 50 likes. I think we're about 22 likes away. So let's get those likes to 50 straight away. We're going to have a very interesting conversation now. Kishan, let's pencil down Lukaku here.
Yep.
We've been talking about how can we get Lukaku to play a lot more freer with the players around him and not just be the target man, also be able to put the ball behind him at times. And let's try and get to the solution, because I feel like it's not necessarily the system. I feel it's personnel. It's the individuals that are playing and their characteristics. There are certain individuals in our team that are not as direct as opposed to other players. And for example, for me, this whole double pivot situation, I know a lot of people don't want to change the back three, and keep it. I don't mind. Keep the back three. If you don't want to take a center back from here and put him here, okay, fine. That will allow us another attacker. That's okay. You want to keep three at the back? I'm all for it. I don't mind. But I feel in these two positions, you do need to have a double pivot player that is a little bit more expressive, that has the ability to score goals and assists. Let's work out from the top, and then we'll go to the pivot. Who in your perspective, and we'll go to Ameya after this, who in your perspective is two players that will allow for Lukaku to be a lot more freer?
Well, with the system is on the right hand side, I'd put Mason Mount, because there's no getting away from it. He's just way too important for us, and we see when he's not there how important he is. But I think a hard one is going to be,
and he doesn't mess around with the ball either. Like he passes,
he doesn't mess around.
Moves it on.
And I get when people say he's not that kind of, he's not an explosive player on the ball, but some of his, like, how he turns on the ball and stuff like that. No one's got that in our team. The half turns to get away. He's got to be in there. And when I look at the other side, I know we were playing a lot with Mount and Havertz. And I think when Lukaku signed, that was the kind of fantasy that our fans had, that it'd be Lukaku, Mount and Havertz up front. But we've seen Havertz in that position, and he is the one where I think, when you've not got that kind of fluid side, it'd be him that you have to take out. And I've been quite critical of him over the past few weeks, because I have not really seen him play that great. But I was got to say, yesterday I was majorly impressed with him and where he was operating from. Like, he'd come deep, and you'd see him pop up on the left wing, running past someone.
Well as well. He was
pressing well. Scored a brilliant header. So that was a brilliant performance. But when Lukaku is in, it's going to be a hard task to place him somewhere else, because I don't know, when I've seen him operate those, he's not that creative as well, is he?
I've said it all along, Kishan. I feel he's actually a substitute to Lukaku. I don't know if Lukaku and Kai, maybe they could work, and they did for Arsenal, but I don't know long term they can be working for every single team, against every team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not for me either. So currently on that left hand side, I'm looking at form. I'm looking at those kind of things. And from who we've got, I've got to keep Callum Hudson-Odoi in there because I've always had this as well with the target man. I felt like Hudson-Odoi was underplayed with Giroud. I think we could have used that a bit more last season. And this season, I want to see Cho from one side and I want to see Reece James putting in crosses from the other side for Lukaku. And I think that will be quite an interesting dynamic.
Ameya, would you agree with this front three, or are you having someone different in the two slots behind Lukaku?
No, I think I completely agree with Kishan there. I think, considering form right now, it has to be Hudson-Odoi on the left. But, we have to see if Pulisic can continue playing without injuries for some time. And hopefully, if he can discover that incredible form that he was in a couple of seasons back. And even last season in the Champions League too, we often forget that, he had excellent performances against Real Madrid in both the legs. So Pulisic is a great player too. So I think I would put one of Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic. And as things stand, it definitely has to be Hudson-Odoi on the left. And I think we excluded Werner entirely from our conversations, actually, which is sort of surprising, but like we discussed earlier, not that surprising. So I would say I would agree, though. I think that this is our best front three.
Let's talk a little bit about that, Ameya. It's a good point. Timo Werner, when he was playing, we were playing more like this, where Werner would be one of those players next
and
to
Lukaku. Almost like putting Mount down, because I think around that time Mount was injured as well. So that really tucked into another midfield. Normally it was Ruben Loftus-Cheek was coming into the team there. So I'd say that formation, when we had it, it was, and this was against Man City, where we played like the five at the back, then the three midfielders, and it was so disconnected to the two up front. Yeah.
Absolutely disconnected. Look, Ameya, getting back to your point, Werner is a shout, and it was a shout for me as well. But Callum's ball control just does it for me, man. I know he's not.
His
Callum's
creativity
not someone...
as well. He's been our most creative player this season.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can dispute that. In the few games that he's got off late, he's been our most creative attacker.
Yeah, you can't dispute it. In this, since the last international break to this international break, especially when he's played mostly almost every game, I believe, he's been the most creative player, Ameya. So that's why we've omitted Werner from this. Obviously, Werner's got a lot, rotation, and there'll be injuries against or whatnot. Ameya, let's now talk about the double pivot, and we'll then go to Kishan for the double pivot. This is where Eke was saying, we need to have a conversation about Kante, guys. Now, Ameya, I would have gone with Ruben Loftus-Cheek yesterday from the get-go. I said that in my preview. However, Ameya, as the game was progressing, I understood why Kante was chosen by Thomas Tuchel, because Burnley's method was long. You're not going to win the first ball because our defenders will win the first ball, but it's the second ball that you're going to compete for. And more often than none, Burnley were there for the second ball almost all the time. But who was the player that was breaking up the second ball? N'Golo Kante. Now, that's fine and dandy for when you're without the ball. How often were we without the ball yesterday? Not that often.
75% of the ball.
There you go. So are you choosing Kante for 25% of the time? The other 75%, honestly, Kante found himself in these areas with the ball. Now, is that the player that you want? Is Kante the player that you want here? Now, you could counter that by saying, Ameya, well, that 25% without Kante would have been a lot higher then. They probably would have got maybe 35%, maybe 40%. And that could have been a bit of an issue for us, because if you're not winning the second ball, then someone like, I don't know, Ruben Loftus-Cheek or Jorginho, they would have been outrun in that midfield. What's your thoughts, man? Because I feel like if you want to get the best out of Lukaku, we've already got the two up front that we think that frees him up a lot more. But who are the two in the pivot that allows for a better game for the front three and also Lukaku?
I think it's dependent on the game, really. I mean, there's no...
Let's say low blocks.
Low blocks, I think it has to be Kovac. It has to be one of the players in the double pivot. If it's a low block, I think that's a brainer. The person to partner him with... This is interesting, right? Because if I say Jorginho now, the chat's going to come for me. But
Kovacic and Ruben Loftus-Cheek have played few matches together. Aston Villa and
exactly.
Brentford.
By the way, he didn't win the Ballon d'Or, did he?
No, not yet.
I don't think so. I don't think the results are out yet.
There's
someone was saying
Messi has been told already.
Yeah, it's a leak. Apparently, it's fake. Like someone came up and said that it's fake. So I mean, let's see. There's a lot of time for that. But I'd really want to say Loftus-Cheek here, but I still think it's impossible to pick. Really, I mean, if you asked me 100%. Oh, okay, do go on, Kishan.
Ameya, I just wanted to add when you said Loftus-Cheek, and this is the thing, when we were talking about a substitution of him coming on yesterday, Miz, and you said you wanted to see someone like Pulisic like really put Burnley to the sword. This is my thing with Loftus-Cheek. As well as he's been playing, I don't feel he's going to add much in terms of substance for us, like in terms of actual goals and assists. And if we're talking about players from that position, I think Kovacic probably offers that bit more, and he's that Kovacic substitute. I don't think you put both of them in at the same time because, again, I think he's going to miss
a bit of too much of the same thing.
And with the shooting and stuff, I don't really see him getting too many goals for us. And it was same with Fulham. He had everything but that final bit of the assist or the goal because he played a lot of football last year, and I think he only got one league goal. So I'm not. Every time he comes onto the pitch, I expect him to glide past players and that side of things, but I don't really expect anything of substance from him. So that's why I'm a bit on the edge with him still.
I'll probably semi-agree with some of the stuff that you said, Kishan, because I did see enough of him in terms of Malmo that game. He put on 2 sublime passes for Kai Havertz and put him through. And then I think Norwich, Ziyech actually put the ball through to Ruben Loftus-Cheek when he came on, and I wanted Ruben to actually. Ruben to actually hit it because then Ziyech would have got the assist and I would have celebrated. But Ruben didn't have the confidence to hit it, and then he squared it to Man, which is fine. At the end of the day, the goal confirmation is a lot more important than if you're not confident, then you're not confident. I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek's game will get better and better as the season goes on. He will get more into the shooting areas. Let's not forget what he did under Sarri. His shooting was on point, and there were some shots outside of the box that he was pinging and getting the goals for. I still remember in the Europa Cup where Ruben got into a very tight space around and he smacked the goal.
That finish was amazing,
against Frankfurt, I believe, and that was a fantastic finish. So he's got it in his locker. So there's always a reference point to go back that Ruben has that in him. But Ameya, going back to that pivot, because this is important. I like Kovacic and Jorginho, and I know you're kind of going to that particular situation. But against low blocks, if we're talking about low blocks, because we're going to come across most teams, very few teams will take the game at us. Man City, Liverpool in the Premier League, Southampton likes to take the game at us because that's just the way they play. But most teams, even Man United, who we're going to play very soon, straight after the international break, they will sit back. They will look for counters. That's how they play. I just don't know whether Kovacic and Jorginho, as good as they are, like for me, it's a bit too much.
It has to be Kante, I think. Yeah, probably has to be Kante, but you can't exclude.
Then Kante doesn't stay back. Kante doesn't stay back.
But I think at least Kante tracks back, right? I think that's one thing you can say. I mean, Jorginho, although he does hold his ground, I think if Kante, even if he does go forward, like you said, the Burnley game itself, right? They were winning the second balls, but Kante was always there to clean up. So I think, at least N'Golo Kante tracks back. Kovacic tracks back as well. Actually, he's improved it this season. That was one of my criticisms last season.
Defensively, Kovacic has been very
contribution.
Good. Do you guys not think, going forward as well, I think Kante is criminally underrated in terms of just ball progression. Did you see when he sold that Burnley defender yesterday?
He just spun him entirely.
Incredible. But it's just I do get once he gets to that final third, it seems like the final pass is too simple.
But once he gets
run so much.
Once he gets heat.
Yeah. He'll get there and then he'll play one really, really simple pass. And sometimes you think, there's something a bit more on, or shoot yourself, because you know what? He's not got a bad shot. he's probably if the three out of him, Cover, and Jorginho, I'd probably want him to shoot more than the other two.
But it's interesting. I don't know, man. Honestly, I would still pick Kante though, just for some defensive balance, because I want to put Reece James and Ben Chilwell on either side, and that's gonna the wing backs are definitely gonna push forward. So I want some sort of defensive stability. So I'm gonna put Kante there, but it's dodgy. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how many games Kante is going to be available for. I mean, he does have his injury issues this season, so we're going to have to take that into consideration as well. So I think it's going to depend on every game. Honestly, I think it's going to depend on the availability of the players. It's going to depend on Kante's fatigue and whatnot. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to depend on who we're playing against and what Thomas Tuchel has seen throughout the week, basically. So there's too many factors to consider. I don't think that we're going to have one single game where we have all our fit players available and all of them are fit and ready to play because of our congested schedule, and we have the Club World Cup next season as well. I think everyone's going to be forced to play 3 games a week or 2 games a week, and I think everyone's got to be rotated. I mean, we're even progressing in the Carabao Cup. I was actually half hoping we get knocked out, but we seem to be winning at that too. So I think considering the game loads that we have, and the FA Cup's going to start soon in January too, so I think considering all that, we're not going to have every single player at their 100% for every single game. So it's going to come down to that at the end of the day. But if I had to, then I'd pick these 3.
Ameya, would Kovacic and Ruben Loftus-Cheek be a shout at all? I mean, I know Kishan sort of said that it's a bit of the same, but could we perhaps have Kovacic a little bit further up and maybe Ruben a bit back? I know I rather have Ruben Loftus-Cheek a bit further up and Kovacic more of a deep line playmaker. Could that work?
Tuchel did try it though, didn't he? When we had, I think he played Kovacic, Kante, and Loftus-Cheek together. Right? Yeah, Brentford. I think he played 3 of them together, and Loftus-Cheek was the deepest of the 3, which is very surprising.
He was.
Actually. So I don't know what Tuchel's been trying, but it could work.
For me, for me, that game was too much chaos. And without Jorginho, I think you do need the controller there because, I get.
To be fair, we didn't have Rudiger or Thiago Silva or any of the leaders in the back. I think that could be honest, one of the problems too.
There was a lot of problems that day in terms. Exactly. We had Malang Sarr and all sorts on the field. So, it's hard to point out. But I do feel like when we were under the cosh a bit at 1-0, Jorginho was the simple substitute to go to. And I don't know why we didn't do it that day.
Yeah.
No, you're right, man. Jorginho, this is where it does get funny, man. I mean, that double pivot, it's always been my factor where I'm not completely sure what actually allows us the best balance. There are certain combinations that gives us great defensive solidity, but then there are other combinations that doesn't give us more attacking expressions. Do you know what I mean? But then,
what? Sorry. But it's like I feel when we're doing well, then our midfield pivot is fine. But I feel like we don't react. That position doesn't react well to adversity. If you get what I mean, if we're chasing a game and yesterday at 1-1, I kind of thought I kind of switched off at that point with how slow it and lethargic it was back then. I just didn't think we'd move the ball or get a goal. And this is the thing with that part on the pitch. I don't feel like we have that substitute where we make it and we're like, okay, this guy's going to drive us forward. This guy can actually nick a goal. And that's the annoying part of it.
And that's the thing, Kishan. The double pivot, it's almost like in the system, it's just a connector. It's not designed to score or assist, it seems like. It's a connector. Help build up, lay the ball to the forward players. That's it. That's your job. You're not meant to be he.
Yeah, but the issue with that though, Miz, is exactly what we saw against Burnley. Is you carry the ball forward, that's fine, but if you sit back and don't press any of these midfielders and you just mark all the players who are in your attacking half, these guys are not going to take a shot. These guys are not going to drive it in, take a shot themselves, right? They'll turn and pass it back and maybe look for some movement from the attackers, which is why I really want to see one of Kovacic or Loftus-Cheek there at all times, because those are the only 2 guys. I mean, Kovacic, till last season, he wasn't, but this season, it looks like he's trying to take shots on. So I really want to see that a lot more. And I think that's one of the reasons why we struggled yesterday, honestly, with Jorginho and Kante. I think they had so much time on the ball right outside the box, but instead of going for the shot or just trying an ambitious pass, because all of our attackers were marked, right? All 5 players who were in attacking positions, whether it be our wing backs, whether it be our striker, whether it be our whoever our wingers, our inside forwards, or whatever you want to call them, really, all of them were marked. And they had so much time on the ball, especially Kante and Jorginho, and I know that they did have a pretty good game themselves, but they're not players who take shots on, right? And who they're not the creative type.
I think
exactly
yesterday there was one moment where Jorginho, I think, took a long range shot.
Yeah, he
Do you
did.
remember?
But that was
I was like, what are you doing?
It was a
I was
volley,
like, what are you doing?
I thought that as well. I was like, and
it
recently,
was
I think that's
it was a good hit.
Recently, I've been seeing him like doing those kind of forward movements a bit more, and then you kind of realize why he's not doing them, because some of them end up.
But you know what the funny thing is, Kishan? It's what you just said. We have recently seen both Kovacic and Jorginho be more progressive. I think this is where the evolution has to come in the system. These two players will need to evolve. But we don't want to change the system.
Jorginho hasn't gotten that much of an evolution in terms of attacking. In terms of shooting and stuff, like I just can't see. And this is maybe the one thing that Saul Niguez does have on everyone in our midfield, is that if he plays, he will shoot, and he's got quite a strike on him. But
everyone's forgotten about Saul Niguez.
Literally, everyone's forgotten about him, and the
is
way
he
played.
Is he there?
I don't know, mate. The way he played against Villa, it's only right that people forgot about him, to be honest. But if he does creep back in, and he pulls his socks out, maybe he is an option in terms of that kind of attacker, box to box kind of player. But I don't know. That's just a left field kind of thing.
On the side sort of note, boys, this is the situation that happens against the low block. What we see in the screen right now, it's literally Chilwell, Reece James, more sort of inverted. You got the front 3, and then I feel like, yes, in recent times, Reece James and Chilwell have been able to bail us out. They've been in good goal scoring, form, and they get themselves into these sort of areas. But if we can get something from these two players, and Kovacic has been providing assists, so let's not be harsh on him. And this is my thing, guys. I feel like the system, I don't need it to change. We still got 3 at the back. If we have our best, let's say, Rudy, at the moment, the way we've been playing is Rudy, Silva, and AC. Seems like that seems to be the go-to for Thomas Tuchel at the moment. Those 3, they should be able to defend any counters. They really should. There's 3 at the back. And then you have either Jorginho, who stays as close as possible. So if there is a 3-on-3, these 3, I'm very positive that they can do the job. And most times it's actually 3-on-4, because Kovacic does go back. And as Ameya was saying, there's some good defensive stats on Kovacic as well. And also Jorginho finds himself into good positions to intercept. I mean, final thought from both of you guys. Go to Ameya first up. This is where I feel we can allow a player to be, and I wish this was like a Bernardo Silva, man. I really wish this was like a Bernardo Silva right there. Do you know what? I'm just going to change it. I'm just going to say, just for argument's sake, imagine that was that kind of player, what that would mean for a player like Lukaku. Ameya, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I still think... look, man, it's going to be slightly long. This is not final thoughts. This is like a pre-final thoughts.
Final thesis before the thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, get ready for that. But look, right, I said this yesterday. I was on Chelsea Perspective as well. And I said the same thing, that, the best teams, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, all of them, they play with the standard formation where you have 5 attacking players who occupy each and every half space, right? So which is why it's the same with us, even Antonio Conte for that matter, right? Everyone keeps 5 attacking players, especially when we are on the attack, and so that they can, occupy every half space, because that's the most balanced you can get. So if you you have 5 up front, it's usually 3-5 or 2-3-5, depending on where you want to position your players. For example, if you look at Liverpool, right, they had Fabinho, who was always dropping in between the two centre backs, who became 3-5. As for City, Walker never overlaps. Walker always sort of drifts into midfield. So they've had that sort of stuff. I think it's different to every club. The players, for example, Conte is pretty straightforward, right? If he has 3 up front and 2 wing backs, so it's different for every single coach. But in the end, they want to achieve the same thing. They want to achieve a 3-5 or a 2-3-5, because if you commit 6 forward, then I think you leave yourself exposed at the back, especially in the Premier League, right? You cannot commit too many men forward in the Premier League. You're going to get hit on the counter.
However, has done that. Pep has done that.
No, I think Pep always interchanges, though. I think, you look at, which is why he used Zinchenko and, Fabian Delph and such players who are actually midfielders and converted them into left backs. Because he wants his full backs to drop into those midfield positions so they still maintain that 2-3-5 shape. That's what he does. I think, which is why, he also has the pace of Walker to rely on. So I think worst comes worst, Walker will just, turn on his boosters and track back. So I'd still think, so they effectively maintain that same system. So what you're trying to propose here, I think with Bernardo Silva there, it's a little bit risky. So which is also why I think, although on paper we still maintain that 3-5 and have 5 attacking players, right? None of the 2 in midfield don't offer that goal threat, which is also why when you look at the 4-3-3, you will maintain that shape, but you will also have an extra midfielder in there to try and sort of get the goals and assists. And although, for me, that's Mount. I think he can put a shift as a number 8, even Loftus-Cheek for that matter, like how he did under Sarri, right? So you're going to have 5 attacking players, and the midfielders who are behind you can also contribute to the goals. That's what City did when they had David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne playing together with Fernandinho in behind them. Right. And that's why I still have a slight reservation about the system. I know I'm not saying it's wrong or anything, but because none of our midfielders really can offer that, and they can't, right? Because if they get into a goal scoring position, then you're going to leave yourself exposed at the back, right? So you don't have an option to do that. And, none of them, although they're trying now, but none of them really take as many long shots, or even if they do, none of them are, the probability of that going in is very, very low. I mean, let's be honest here, guys. Let's be honest. So I think it's a complicated situation, and I think we have had, the issue is, although the system isn't perfect, we have so many, different types of players in the system who are more suited to particular games. That's what Tuchel's been trying out, right? That's why he's introduced Ross Barkley and, the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek in once again, right? So I think that we do have options. We do have different kinds of players, and the players are good in their own right. So I think when they're on the top of their game, we get those goals, even though the system isn't perfect. But I still think that, is it sustainable? Definitely. But this is going to raise a few eyebrows, really. But our system is not perfect, and
it isn't. It's mostly it's a defense. It's defense first. It's making sure that you're solid in defense. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not defensive, because we've been scoring goals. It's more defensively solid. That's the ideology with this system.
Exactly.
This is what Thomas Tuchel, you need to understand, when Thomas Tuchel first came in, he said, we want to be able to be hard to beat. He didn't say we want to go out there and smash teams.
Yeah.
We want to be hard to beat.
Yeah.
Understand what he's trying to say. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. So I still think our system isn't perfect, but we have enough quality in our attacks to score in each and every single game, and we have enough firepower from the bench to come on and replace our attack in case needed, which is why I think we will still continue with this. But it's far from perfect, and I still think we need reinforcements in a couple of areas before we become sort of invincible per se.
Kishan, what's your thoughts, man? We're mostly talking about low blocks, because teams that sort of want to play toe-to-toe with us, we do all right. We can go toe-to-toe with teams, but I'm talking more about teams that want to sit deep, and we need to find solutions. We don't always tend to find solutions. So what's your thoughts on this?
I want to know, firstly, where Bernardo Silva came from. I missed that part. Where he's not a player.
I would like to have a player like Bernardo Silva, but yeah, let's put Kante there, because he finds himself in that location.
Back to reality.
Back to reality, right?
Yeah, so similar to what you guys say with it. It's like the system's not perfect, and when you think about Thomas Tuchel as a coach as well, for me, this system is not him, but he's made do with like the tools that he has. Whereas, like, if you asked him in an ideal world what he'd like to play, I think he'd say 4-3-3 as well.
Yeah.
So for now, I think it's about managing until we get maybe the players he thinks that he can sort of work with, because I don't know, these kind of players, Miz, you got to remember where Jorginho and Kova and those kind of players, where we saw them in a 4, we were pretty much, a lot of our fan base were done. I was done with players like Jorginho. Like, you know how I tapped out on Ziyech. Jorginho was one of them for me, where I thought this guy's bang average, useless.
Under Frank Lampard was. Yeah,
he's come in and made everyone look really, really good. And this is the part. If he changes that formation to something like a 4-2-3-1, and someone like Jorginho or Kovacic don't get enough protection, they will start looking bang average again. So it's
a very good point, bro.
It's a very good point. Yeah, so like that system is what has made us look so good. That system is what has won us the Champions League and stuff. And so far, the players haven't changed that much. If you look at the only change that has really, really happened in the first team, it's only pretty much Lukaku coming in since that formation has changed. So I think, again, for one player, it's a hard ask to change the whole formation. But over the next sort of 2 to 3 years, if Tuchel is still here, then I think we'll see what this formation and what our team sort of evolves into, with a different 100%. Profile of defensive midfielder and stuff. So you'll get a lot of players saying, people saying we don't need a certain profile of DM, but I still think that's one of the main reasons that when you have an athletic DM that can do sort of both sides of the game quite well and get to box, you will see that we don't have to play in that certain manner to protect certain individuals.
100%, man. No, it's been a fantastic conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys got something out of